Hey, what's going on guys? Arekkz here, welcome back to another video for Monster Hunter World Iceborne, and today I want to show you an incredibly awesome set that gives you 100% affinity, guaranteed crits on every single hit, insane damage potential, a set you may have seen many pro players running before that allows them to do insane damage and take down the monster incredibly fast with the added bonus that you basically never need to sharpen. This is a devastatingly destructive longsword build. Having said that, it doesn't have to be exclusively longsword, it could be used by any melee weapon, but in this case, the focus is the longsword. Welcome back to another episode of Chasing the Meta. Now, just before we go any further, let me just take a moment to re-explain this series, because we kicked this off yesterday, and luckily most of you guys understood exactly what we're trying to do, which is awesome, and I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. But some of you guys clearly didn't understand what we're trying to do. There were comments like, "Hey man, there should have been a part breaker decoration in this.
Hey man, this is not optimal.
Yo bro, this set is whack. Throw yourself in the sea."
And I get it. Sometimes when you kick off a new series, people don't necessarily always know exactly what the purpose is. Maybe you even skipped the intro, so you had no idea what I was talking about. So let me make it very clear. When you play Monster Hunter, if you've invested thousands of hours into the game and you are like that top 1% player, you probably have all the decorations you need. You can finally min-max things to get absolutely everything you need, and you can make some truly devastating sets to the point where you look at the monster and it just dies. However, for the general population, not everybody has that. Not everybody has the level 4 attack decoration, the level 4 true shot decoration, those challenge of vitality decorations. Sometimes you just don't have it. And for a lot of people, if you showcase a perfect mix set, they simply can't make it. So the idea behind the Chasing the Meta series is to take a set that the pro players use, the top 1%, and strip it back and take a look at it and be like, what is the minimum stuff you need to get this to work? Take the light bowgun set from yesterday, right? Yes, you can obviously make it really good. Here's an example. You can put part breaker in it, you can put attack, agitator, peak performance, loads of things. But if you really break it down, what you need is the light bowgun, the Nagakuga set bonus, max artillery, and maybe some free element as well. That's pretty much all you need to at least get it up and running. Outside of that, based on the decorations you have, you can then fine tune it. You can add in attack, agitator, peak performance, whatever you want. And that's what we want to do with this series. The idea is to take something that is meta, that a lot of people are using to do great damage, and strip it back and work out what is the easiest way to get there. That is Chasing the Meta. This series is not called The Meta Sets. If you want to find meta sets, you can literally go on YouTube and search best Monster Hunter mix sets, and you'll probably find what you want. But for this one, the idea is to make that top 1% accessible to the masses. Cool? Alright, back to the video. Now this set once again revolves around one of the new safi'jiiva weapons. This time it is the Safi's Shatterblade. In truth, it doesn't have to be the Shatterblade. It could be any of the longswords you like. In this situation, I use the blast one because it actually synergizes quite nicely with this build, but in truth, I would quite happily take any of the abnormal statuses, sleep, poison, paralysis, because any of those are going to be incredibly useful for just passive bonuses. That being said, in this situation, we have the Shatterblade, which is the blast one, and you can see that I've awakened it for two core things. One of those is a bunch of attack, which is why this now has 1040 attack, plus the other one is the Teostra technique. That is arguably the most important thing in this build. And again, as one of the focuses of this series, this is something that is, I mean, yes, okay, when you're rolling abilities, there is an element of RNG in it, but this is something you can 100% pursue without need for like some insanely complicated decoration. So, grab yourself a longsword from safi'jiiva and roll it like so. Outside of that, you're then going to want the safi'jiiva helmet, the chest piece and the legs. Meanwhile, you're then going to want the Teostra gloves and the waist. As for the charm in this situation, it is the Master's Charm 3. Ideally, this would of course be Master's Charm 4, assuming you have the Odogaron parts you need to do that upgrade. Now, if you then jump over and take a look at the decorations, you can of course see you have quite a lot of slots to play with here. By default, you have a few points in Critical Eye, you have maxed out Critical Boost, and you have 1 point in Weakness Exploit. Now, it's important to note that the crux of this build ultimately boils down to the Teostra set piece bonus. This prevents your weapon from losing sharpness whenever you land critical hits. So, in order to make this build do what we want it to do, we need to ensure that we have 100% affinity at all times. And you can achieve that quite simply by using the Expert Jewel 4, which everybody will have, a couple of additional Expert Jewels, again, which most people tend to have, and you'll only need one if you have Master's Charm 4, and you then only need one Tenderizer Jewel, which, okay, yes, that can still be a little bit rare depending on how unlucky you are, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people have got that. Now, you only need one because you don't actually need Weakness Exploit 3. If you then pair this with an Affinity Augment on your weapon, pushing the safi'jiiva weapon up to 15% Affinity, then when you draw the safi'jiiva weapon, giving you the 20% bonus from the 3-piece set bonus, that gives you 75% Affinity simply by having your weapon drawn. And when you then factor in that Weakness Exploit level 2, gives you a further 15% Affinity when you attack weak spots, with an additional 15% on wounded points, then even without having to wound any part of the monster, simply provided you're attacking the weak spots, provided you know your hit zones, then you will always be hitting for 100% Affinity, meaning every single one of your hits will be a crit, meaning every single hit will benefit from Teostra Technique. So, with that basic setup, you then have everything you need in place to ensure your sharpness never goes down. And with all of that in place, you also have a ton of decoration slots free. So this is where the customization angle comes in, because obviously the next steps will depend on what you have available. Assuming you have some great decorations, then you could do something like this, and even this could be optimized further. For example, if I happen to have a Furor level 4 decoration, then I could have even greater benefit. I could max out Resentment, which works incredibly nicely with the safi'jiiva set bonus, given that you are losing health when you attack, so you are constantly proccing Resentment. But as you can see, this is where the customization angle comes in, because some of you guys may not have an attack jewel 4, some of you may not have Furor jewels, some of you may not have Challenger jewels. Depending on what you have will ultimately influence what you can do beyond that point. So if you go from that base point of ensuring you have 100% affinity, then you really slot in what works for you. Maybe you want to be safe, maybe you want to throw in some health boost, maybe you want to throw in some part breaker to specifically focus on breaking safi'jiiva's parts, maybe you want to throw in more Challenger jewels because that's what you've got, maybe you want to max out Resentment, maybe you want to max out attack boost. There is so much stuff you can do, and this is just an example. This is not by any means optimal, this is not by any means the best permutation, but this is an example of what you can do once you have the base in place. Now, to very quickly go over what we have spec'd in here, to give you an example of how you may decide to spec this out, you of course have the aforementioned Teostra Technique, which is the main thing that prevents your weapon from losing sharpness during critical hits. The safi'jiiva 3-piece set bonus, as opposed to the 5-piece set bonus, is what gives us that 20% affinity on weapon draw. Of course, it does also boost your elemental and your abnormal status, which happens to work quite nicely with the blast on this weapon, or if you happen to take paralysis, poison, anything like that, but predominantly this is here for that 20%. Critical Eye, of course, gives us that 40% affinity increase, allowing us to get that all-important flat 75% total. Attack Boost level 4 gives us a further 5% affinity on top of that 12 attack. Blast Attack level 4 in this situation has been gemmed in because it happens to be a Blast Longsword and there's a couple of blast points on the Teostra pieces, so it makes sense to just throw it in anyway. Obviously, if you chose a Paralysis or a Poison or a Sleep set, you could completely ignore this. Largely speaking, the abnormal status in this particular setup is more a passive thing in the background. You're not really building around it, but since we had slots, we throw it in anyway, giving you more blast build-up, so in this situation when you're doing great damage and not sharpening, you're also going to get those blast procs doing even more damage. Critical Boost, of course, increases the damage dealt when dealing critical hits, of which you'll be doing all the time because you have 100% affinity, and you have that nice Resentment level 3, which again could be improved if you have better decorations. If you had the Furor level 4 decoration, then you could 100% get this, because of course, with the Safi set bonus, we are constantly getting red health, we're constantly damaging ourselves, so Resentment is pretty much up all the time. So this will of course increase your attack by a flat 15 in the case of level 3 anytime we use that bonus. On top of that, there is Weakness Exploit level 2 because that is all you need to make this work. And then since I had a couple of extra slots, I threw in some Agitator to give me additional raw attack just because the monster's always going to be enraged, and it's just a way to get some additional stuff to boost that damage. Once again, this is an example of something that could quite easily be swapped out. Maybe you want to put in Part Breaker here instead. Maybe you want to use this to put in some health boost. Maybe you want to do something completely different, but this is just an example of a few things you can throw in. The additional points, largely speaking, come from extras on the gear pieces or just any double decorations that happen to have these things. So you can of course see there's a lot of possibilities. Do keep in mind that for the longsword, you need to land 6 hits in order to proc the safi'jiiva set bonus, and some of your attacks will, by default, sheath your weapon. So try to factor that in if you're using the longsword, because if you happen to go from something like a regular attack into an EI sheath, that of course does reset the counter. And additionally, if you go off the back of, say, a spirit combo and you have the auto sheath, if that happens to be just your 5th hit, then you may not proc the heal. So yes, there is an element of danger to using this because it does eat away at your health, but it also allows you to do a ton of great damage. Plus, you also get the added bonus of when you draw your weapon, you look like a badass Power Ranger. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. That is a look at the Infinite Sharpness melee build. Again, this is built more so around the longsword just because of those quick attacks and whatnot, and it works very nicely, but it doesn't mean to say it has to be exclusively for the longsword. You could do the exact same thing with sword and shield, dual blades, greatsword, any kind of melee weapon, so this definitely is not limited. However, as you can see, if you strip it all back and work out exactly what you need, it actually gives you a ton of great options, and even if you don't necessarily have every single decoration, you can still make it work. So, there you have it. That's a rundown on that set. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and of course be sure to keep it locked because we have plenty more episodes in Chasing the Meta coming your way. There are lots more exciting weapons to talk about, lots more exciting builds to talk about, and we're going to try and sneak a few more of those in this week before the Christmas holidays. I really hope you guys enjoyed that video. Remember to hit that subscribe button and also click on the little bell icon to turn on notifications so you don't miss my next upload. Also, don't forget you can check out 269 and Paradise Central streaming over on Twitch 6 days a week. You can find a link to the multi-stream in the description box down below. Be sure to drop by and get involved. Thanks again for watching. Take it easy. Catch you next time. Peace out.